I am just here to remind you, once again, that it is okay to put down the HRT. It is okay to relax. You don't have to troon out. You don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to sprint off the cliff. I actually think that things are going to be okay. I actually think that we have a good chance of winning the midterms. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, yeah, we're actually going to win the midterms, and people just have not realized that yet, which is not their fault. We all have our own walk with the plan. I have realized this because it was revealed to me in my sort of intuitive sense. I followed that. I went down the rabbit hole. I did the math. And yeah, by the end of this episode, I know that you will agree with me, which is to say we all will understand that we are going to win the midterms. Okay, first off, where are we even at, like, right now in America today? It seems pretty bad. I mean, everybody you talk to agrees that it's over. America's over. We're trying to just buy ourselves time at this point. Everything hasn't worked out as it was supposed to. MAGA's dead. We have to start figuring out what comes after this thing, which clearly is not working or happening anymore. Again, what are you talking about? What does this even mean? What the Trump administration is doing is actually working. You can see this in the numbers. Last year, we saw the biggest decline in murders in recorded history, biggest in history of all time. In fact, pretty much all crime is down substantially, literally everywhere. You know, we talked about Memphis obviously being a huge deal, targeting these major cities, huge deal. That doesn't just mean that people are safer, like obviously, you know, less people are dying, less people are being robbed or whatever. It means people are going to start feeling better too. Their experience in society and who they ascribe that to being the incumbent Republican administration, that is something that is happening. That is going to occur. People are going to realize that. Their experience in America may not be as attentive and refined as yours, somebody who's, you know, very closely monitoring the situation, but it doesn't have to. That is the masses, right? That is the nature of the average citizen. And it's tough to be happy and to enjoy being governed by Republicans when you're worried about getting robbed or getting killed. It's tough to feel attached to your neighborhood, to your community, to the people occupying it when you don't feel safe in it in the first place. There was so much insane bullshit that the Biden administration just made normal people have to deal with, like random crowds of activists who are literally getting paid to harass you on the streets, illegal immigrants from the most shithole countries getting paid to fly here and then getting paid to live here, unnecessary dysfunction that follows from hiring government officials, not because they, you know, would be the best at the job, but just because they had the best, like, pigment of non-white skin, or they were the best at cutting off their penis, right? This is like what people were having to deal with. Silence is violence. Opposition to this is offensive. It's low status. That was what it was like under peak woke, maybe in, I don't know, Biden's America, right? So there's still a lot of progress to be made. We're healing from that. But you don't have to worry about that stuff nearly as much anymore. Every single person in America knows this, even if they won't admit it, even if they're not conscious of it. It's easier to live now. It is easier to be an American now than earlier. Remember learning about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in school if you took any class ever? The Trump administration is pouring sand into the pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is now filling up every single day. Physiological needs are getting cheaper. Rent is cheaper. For the first time, we saw that index go down because of mass deportations, which apparently aren't happening. Food prices, cheaper. Food inflation, declining. Safety, security needs. These things are being fulfilled as Trump's noble goon squads take out the trash with hundreds of thousands of arrests and deportations. You keep this up, we are going to allow millions of Americans to finally find their love, find belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization, after years of more or less being in the dark, years of that peak woke era, 2014 to 2024, that was very psychologically destabilizing. People are healing from that. That's going to reflect in their political involvement. And that's not to say things are perfect. That's not to say that we're like basically on the way there. Things are not perfect by any means. For instance, there's a huge jobs crisis right now, right? The Trump administration needs to do more to get young people good jobs. We have discussed this. However, as bad as it is now, this is all part of a larger positive restructuring that the Trump administration is forcing. Things are going to get noticeably better later, especially as the 2026 midterms approach. The economy is already ramping up into higher gear. People said that wouldn't happen. People said it would be the opposite. Trump was going to crash the economy. Not the case. Things are accelerating in a positive direction. We've got the first net negative foreign-born population growth in more than 50 years. That is insane. We have historically high tariff revenues, which, as Trump announced, are going to continue. That is insane. And a lot of companies are responding to these new pressures by eliminating positions, moving them overseas rather than hiring Americans to replace the people they're losing, jacking up prices. But there are hard limits to these businesses' ability to do that. American employers are smarter, they're more competent than their competitors in the world, right? American consumers are the most desirable consumers in the world. Everybody knows that. Businesses can't ever just take their ball and go home. People lose sight of that fact. Even in its crippled state under total libtard tyranny, America is still an economic juggernaut. No pain, no gain. You should never, even for a second, just be indifferent to the pain that this larger restructuring causes. The Trump administration can and should do everything it can to reduce the disruptions. These disruptions that restoring our country are going to cause people, obviously. However, in the long run, the ultimate result is going to be higher wages for Americans. Reshoring of a bunch of important industries that we lost over the last few decades due to traders who Trump replaced. The longer this process continues, the closer we get to those limits for these businesses to be able to replace Americans, to do whatever. They're going to have to accept that this is the new normal. That is good. Trump's policies in 2025 have already resulted in an increase in household wealth, consumer purchasing power. This has all been going down under the Biden administration. This is a phenomenon that is only going to get more noticeable to more people with time, as the midterms are approaching. For example, what's also going to get more noticeable over time is the increase in general competence and efficiency of the Trump administration's quite aggressive efforts, actually, to fix our country, the big, beautiful bill allowed for 10,000 new ICE agents to implement Trump's mass deportations, which the people voted for. Training a professional deportation officer actually takes quite some time. The street level chatter is that federal law enforcement training has been completely filled up for the last year. And the new hires, of course, authorized by the BBB are still going to be rolling out in the coming months. Everybody was freaking out about that. Where are they? Where are they? Yeah, we have to train all of these new people. We cold started a machine. We now have people filling those roles. They need training. We cannot wave a magic wand. Now this momentum is occurring. Now this momentum is building upon itself. That is good. Take Operation Metro Surge, the Trump administration's centerpiece operation in Minneapolis. The biggest DHS operation in history. I'm supposed to be mad about that. They deployed roughly 3,500 agents at once. They were polling people from all over the country. This really was a complex operation, and the operation was successful in arresting literally thousands of illegal immigrants and forcing state and local officials in Minnesota to end their sanctuary city policy. Never let anyone tell you the Trump administration lost that encounter, by the way. Liberals were met with overwhelming force that they weren't used to dealing with. And it created so many problems for them that they were forced to back down. People protesting against Tim Walz, freaking out, the activist class. They had to balk. They had to bend the knee. They tried it. They tried to do a little bit of secession, Civil War talk, but they bent the knee. So, okay, yeah, we can pull out. We can go do other stuff elsewhere. Now you're going to pick up the slack, and that's exactly what's happening. Total Patriot victory. That is what that looks like. So as successful as the Trump administration has been in Minneapolis, obviously it wasn't perfect. I'm not saying it is. Nothing that size, again, largest in history, is ever going to be perfect, especially when law enforcement is greatly outnumbered by fanatical libtard opposition, as it was. However, in the future, ICE, DHS, other agencies are going to be working with the invaluable experience that they gained operating in that operation at that scale, and they couldn't do that before. How do you prevent leftist activists from interfering with your work when they're willing to, crash their cars into you? How do you organize thousands of immigration officers to conduct hundreds of raids in a relatively small place in a relatively short period of time? How do you move thousands of prisoners and deportees into jail in a limited amount of time quickly? I don't know. Where are you going to get backup if you need it? You're in a hurry. You're in a pinch. Unexpected crowds are converging on you. These are all questions that the Trump administration has been learning the answers to. They are getting better at it. So thanks to the groundwork that's been laid over the last year, Operation Metro Surge doesn't need to be some one-off thing. Trump administration can do this wherever it wants to until leftist resistance inevitably breaks. These people are paper tigers. They can replicate this wherever they want to. They're going to be able to combine new resources and personnel, which again, it's been acquiring with the experience it's been gaining with these increasingly complex operations. Earlier efforts in Los Angeles, in Chicago, the start of 2025. Remember those? Those were like the misfires for the Trump administration. The DHS certainly fought hard. That was awesome. But they didn't bring nearly enough personnel to score a decisive victory. People were upset about that then. I get it. Truly successful operations in cities like those could require 35,000 deportation officers at once. That might seem fantastical until you realize that 3,500 federal agents in one place working, in a coordinated way, that was just a fantasy until it happened like a month ago in Minneapolis. It can scale. It can replicate. We can amplify the characteristics of the host template. We understand this. So, yeah, basically, one part of why I think that we're going to win is things on the ground are going better for Republicans as the midterms get closer. We won on the issues. What we're doing is working and making everything better. Our ability to do that is only going to increase. It is compounding. That is good. It's accelerating, literally. Do you remember that? Remember the accelerationism thing where it's like literally we are going to accelerate victory by actually decelerating our momentum, whereas to actually accelerate would be to have compounding victory where the distance between integers of victory become closer together. That is where we're at now. We are accelerating towards total patriot victory. And the Trump administration is literally going to be better at wielding the power it possesses as time passes. Accelerationism. There you go. You got what you wanted. And the big changes that the Trump administration has forced are going to have time to kick in. The situation is going to stabilize into something that seems fundamentally different than what it seems like today. Certainly what it seemed like at the beginning of the Trump administration, the sequel, right? The beginning of 2025. That's all good for Republicans. Republicans consistently score higher among the general public when it comes to trust on real world quality of life issues that voters actually care about. Things like immigration, things like the economy, crime, affordability, general things like that. There are definitely problems that still need to be fixed. Jobs and housing are the biggest ones, especially pertaining to younger people. But Republicans are showing that they're actually able to definitively make normal people's lives better. They are telegraphing that is where their objectives are lying. That is good going into 2026. That is huge. It is very difficult to argue with results, which is why people hold up signs about black people and apes, which is why they cry. They have no argument.